Welcome back to It's All Her, the podcast. I'm your host, Jordy Lucas. I'm the founder and editor of It's All Her. I was an actress in a previous life and I'm a mum to a toddler. I've got a lot going on and I have a passion for helping women live simpler, better lives. For the latest in lifestyle and entertainment news, head to itsallher.com. Happy Tuesday, if that's when you're listening. If not, happy whatever day it is. I hope you've had a wonderful week. One of the biggest pieces of entertainment news and a story that has me upset this week is, of course, that Neighbours may be coming to an end. After almost 40 years on screen, the UK broadcast partner Channel 5 have pulled the plug, and they are the major financier of the production. So without their backing, the show essentially folds. And now before I get into it, I know that the show isn't the best, most highbrow piece of television. I am well aware that it's a soap. It's cheesy. Sometimes it's downright cringeworthy. But for a lot of people, it is an escape, and it provides so much nostalgia for so many people. And it also provides employment for not only Australian actors, but for crew members, cameramen, makeup artists, set dressers, production assistants, so many people who went to work on Friday and are now facing the prospect of no job. It's one of only 2 productions in our country that provides steady employment within our television industry. So it really would be a terrible shame to lose that. And on a sentimental note, I grew up watching the show with my mum, and then my dreams came true when I was able to work on the show for just over 3 years. And I have such fond memories of the people there. And I know a lot of them still work on the show, especially within the crew. It is an institution for young actors, and it is such a family environment. And I know that there's still such a tight-knit group. So I really do hope that Channel 10 here in Australia can find a new broadcast partner, or at least a solution as to how they can give the show some sort of future. I would love to hear your thoughts, or even if you have a memory watching the show as a kid, head to our Instagram at It's All Her and share that with us. Right, let's get to this week's guest. Erin Holland won Miss World Australia in 2013 and has since gone on to have an extremely successful career in the media. She presents the cricket for Channel 7 and boasts just over 400,000 followers on Instagram, so that's pretty impressive. We caught up to talk about how she met her hubby on Instagram, of all places, how she stays healthy during her crazy work schedule, and her thoughts on SAS Australia. Here's my chat with Erin Holland. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. You are in Pakistan at the moment. I had no idea that you were overseas before we jumped on. What are you doing over there? What are you up to?
Yeah, so I'm over here hosting a big cricket tournament at the moment called the Pakistan Super League, which is their version of the Big Bash League, I suppose, that we have back here in Australia. And it's really fast growing, becoming one of the biggest and most important T20 franchise leagues in the world. So you have a lot of the best players from all over the world come and play, and they like to bring in a few foreign commentators and hosts too to be a part of the panel, which is great. So this is my 3rd season doing it. Last year I didn't get to go because of COVID, but back this year, which is great. And yeah, it's an awesome opportunity to get to work overseas again. And in a normal time, I'd be doing quite a lot of this, but obviously the last sort of 2 years, it's been few and far between. So it's really exciting to be back. It's hard work at the moment because everyone in COVID tries to jam everything into a really short window. So I'm working 28 days in a row with 1 day off. So
wow.
It's a lot.
And it's crazy hours. You just said before that you got to sleep at like 3:30 in the morning. So it's really intense.
Yeah, well, full exposure to everyone listening. This is our false start because I slept through my alarm this morning. Apologies. But so I go to sleep around 3 a.m. By the time you get home, take off your face, do everything that you do after,
and wind down.
Yeah, and then wind down, because when you're on air, obviously you're up and your nervous system, your adrenaline, everything's kind of firing. So it's really hard to crash.
Yeah.
So it's, you just completely end up living your life in reverse. And because of the time difference in Australia, when it is 3 a.m. in the morning, it's 9 a.m. back home. So then I'm tempted to be on my phone answering emails or checking my calendar so I know what I'm doing next day. So it's just completely different.
Yeah. I want to hear all about how you sort of got into presenting cricket, but let's take it back to winning Miss World in 2013. One, I guess, what made you enter, but two, how did that change your life? Because I'm imagining you woke up and it completely changed.
It truly did. And I'm so grateful that they gave me the opportunity, because it really was the catalyst for me to foray into the industry that I always wanted to be a part of. And so my background is I trained as a classical singer at the Sydney Conservatorium. So I'm was heading more down the opera, musical theatre, professional training route. And that's what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to be on Broadway. So I grew up singing and dancing from 4 years old, and performing was a huge part of my life. It was all I ever did. And I thought that was what I wanted to do. So when I finished my degree at the Sydney Conservatorium, I was auditioning for musicals and, living the life of a, struggling performer, which is, incredibly difficult. Like we know, there's few and far opportunities to go around. And it's one of those ones, it seems, where, obviously when you walk into a job interview, they look at your resume, they look at your CV, what have you done? And when you're straight out of uni, there's nothing on there. You've done maybe some amateur theatre, you've done whatever you did when you were in school, but there's nothing to show until you get that first break. It's very hard, like with any job, very hard to get a door. And I was getting really close with some auditions and not even getting looked at past the first round in others. I'm quite tall for a dancer as well, which worked against me even in a couple of other shows. So I was getting frustrated after maybe like a year and a half of constantly auditioning, and I was working a lot of promo work. I'd never modeled before in my life, but just some event modeling, very basic commercial shooty bits and pieces of work just to try and make ends meet. Living in expensive Sydney, coming from Cairns in North Queensland, and very, very supportive parents, but they're also very realistic, saying, if you can't make it work, you can't make it work. We don't have endless pockets to get you across the line. I was looking around at what was happening in media at that time, and you've got your Jen Hawkins and your Jacinta Campbells and your Rachel Finders and those girls who are doing incredible things, but they do have very diverse careers. It all started in the same way, but they sort of have done what they, branched out and done very, very different things. And I just saw it as a platform, and I wanted to put my face out there, maybe get myself a great manager and just be in front of the right people. And I thought, great, because, you do see plenty of people that from the media doing musical theatre, like your Erica Haynetts or your Rob Mills or your Anthony Calliers, and obviously all incredibly talented people who deserve to be there, but also names that from elsewhere. So that was my thought process behind doing a pageant. And I did one in 2012, and I came top 10, I think it was. Came out the next year and won, after doing the right research and the due diligence and just sort of knowing what I was up for. It was the first time I went to, I had absolutely no idea. So it really was the start of everything for me, and I'm very, very grateful that they saw enough in me to give me the opportunity to have that platform. And being a singer, Miss World was great for me because it's got that talent component, and it's got the philanthropy component, and it's a lot more sort of evenly spread across the categories rather than being just about the physical aspect, which is what was important to me, because I just sort of thought, well, I don't particularly rate myself in that particular way, but I know that I have things to offer in those other areas, and hopefully that's enough to stand out amongst the 133 other countries that competed that year. So from there you get I got a great manager. I've still got him now, Morgan. He was calling me and waking me up this morning because I slept through my alarm. We've been together for 8 years now, which is awesome, and it truly provided me the exact platform that I needed. And I felt like I had something to offer, and I had the skill set to do well, but I didn't know how to get in front of the right people in order to show that. So it really was everything, and now it was gosh, like 2013, almost
Oh
9
my
years ago.
gosh.
God,
It's
well,
crazy, isn't it?
that's
So
wild.
what would the dream role be?
So because of the training that I did and the kind of voice type that I have, I always wanted to be like a Christine in Phantom of the Opera. But as I've sort of matured and gotten older and delved more into that kind of style of singing, I'm more of a mezzo soprano, and
Yeah.
it's your, your Wickeds or your
Oh my gosh.
Les Miserables, or like an Eponine rather than a Fantine, which I always thought I was more the lighter soprano voice. But
Yeah.
there's so many amazing musicals out there now. It's and the wide varied roles that are available. It's exciting, and the kind of singing that there is, and I would love to do it one day. It's not like it's over and I don't want to do that. I found my, I suppose, little niche and my path has sort of strayed from that for now. But all the skills that you use growing up being a performer on stage, you can use in live broadcast, because when you're on stage, you only get one shot. You don't get to go, oh, cut, that was no good. There's an audience there. But what can you do? And live broadcast is, of course, really similar. The show must go on, even if your earpiece dies or the monitor dies or the person goes rogue you're talking to, or, if all hell breaks loose, what do you do? And that's all the training, I guess, I've had from being on stage since I was 4, that you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah. So let's talk about your love life. I read that you met your hubby on Instagram, which is like the classic modern love story these days. How did you sort of know that he was the real deal? Because I feel like a lot of guys would have been sliding into your DMs.
It's so, he never likes telling this story because I don't even know why. I'm like, it's 2022. Everyone meets online these days. It was 8 years ago. It's been now 7 years. 7 years we've been together.
Yeah.
Dating apps were just sort of starting to come into the front of people's minds as an actual legitimate way of meeting people. It was very much, Tinder was for hookups. That was it. I actually have never, ever used a dating app in my life. I kind of was single before that was really the done thing. So so Instagram was really the only thing that I used. And the reason why he doesn't like to tell the story is, even though he goes, you liked my photo first, the only reason I liked your photo first was for quite a sombering, sad reason. And the reason being, and you probably remember this, but there was a cricketer who died at the SCG 7 years ago now.
Was that 7 years ago now?
7 years ago now. And he was someone who, even though he played for Queensland for his career, he played for Australia with this particular person. And you probably remember a social media campaign that went around, which was, put your bat out for Phil. In the few days before he actually passed, everyone was doing this, wishing him well, praying for the best, and everyone was putting their cricket bats and their helmets outside and sharing a photo on social media for Phil. And on my Instagram that day, the explore page was not quite as mature as it is now, and kind of just showed you things that were trending in your area rather than the very specific things that you like, which, I mean, it probably would have showed up anyway, because I love cricket and I grew up watching it. But Ben's photo popped up, and it was a photo of the two of them playing for Australia together, and I liked that photo. And then his name was someone that I'd seen play. I was aware of who he was. I wasn't interested in that way. I was dating someone else at the time. I'm a liberal liker. I don't think of every photo I like as being like, hey, how you doing? It's just a photo on Instagram. But I liked a photo, and then I was like, who's this guy? And I was like, oh yeah, I know who that is. And there was another photo on there that I liked, which was him and one of his best mates, Usman Khawaja, who ended up being the best man at our wedding. Liked a photo that had him in it. And then from there he slid into my DMs with like the worst pickup line ever. Like, it was like sleazy or creepy. It just was genuinely not even a pickup line. It was like, hey, how you doing? And then it was like, oh, me and the guys are coming down to Sydney for a cricket game next week. We're just wondering, like, where's the best restaurants? I'm like, yeah, cool. That's not asking me out. That's not even close. So it was pretty shocking, actually. I don't even know how it happened from that. But after a couple of months of very, very few messages back and forward, we just decided to actually meet up when I was in Brisbane across Christmas time.
Yeah.
He was in season with cricket and couldn't really travel. And that was it. He was, don't block your ears, mum. a weekend one-time thing that ended up turning into 7 years. So, it's just so random how it works.
Yeah.
And it's great because anyone who ever sort of says, oh, I don't know, like, not sure where I stand, blah, blah, I'm like, they like you, you'll know.
You will know. Oh, my gosh.
Plain and simple. Don't confuse it. Not to say things can't change, but if you have to wonder whether or not they like you,
they probably don't.
Probably not going the way you want it.
I was going to ask you what your advice for dating online is, and I think that is pretty solid advice. If you have to wonder,
I think in my experience, the games don't work, and particularly when you get to a certain age. Like he was 27, 28 at the time when I met him. Yeah, he's 35 now, and I would have been 24, 25, and I think by that age, either they're ready to sort of, settle down, have a relationship, or they're just like, So I think that's definitely my advice is, for me anyway, the games don't work, and no. Who has time?
Oh, no one. You competed on SAS Australia last year, and we got to see a very different side of you. What made you want to sign up?
I think COVID was horrific for everyone in very different ways. No one had a good pandemic as far as I'm aware. But for me, because all of your work obviously disappeared when all of our industry shuts down, the arts and all of that was very last of the list of things that were important in many ways. And if people aren't allowed out of their houses, it's very hard to put on shows and have events and do all of that. So all of a sudden my very busy life just ended up disappearing. And I think I have a bit of PTSD from being a performer, living from paycheck to paycheck for years, just from university, and then for the years after, where I'm always worried about where the next gig's coming from and where the next opportunities coming from, and needing to really always be constantly working towards maintaining a career, because I kind of always feel like if I don't, it'll just evaporate and all that hard work will be for nothing. So in the pandemic, I very much got into a big mental rut where I just felt like, what am I doing? Where's my life going? I felt physically and mentally stuck. And when the opportunity came to do SAS, and mind you, as Ben will agree with, if he ever listens to this, he'll go like, babe, I when we watched it together last year, you actually said to me, if they ever ask me to do it, tell me to say no. Tell me you do not want to do this. Like, just remind me this is not something that I want to do. And the second they ask, I'm like, yes. And he goes, should I bother? I'm like, no, don't tell me. But I'm a really, I think I really needed something to sort of shake my life up and put myself in a comfort zone. And I shared the experience on the show, but I'd gone through that break in just a couple of months earlier at home, and it was a real comedy of errors leading up to that moment. My auntie had died, which was my mum's little sister, horrifically of bowel cancer, and it happened very quickly in the end. And I wasn't able to get there for the funeral to be there with mum because I was stuck in New South Wales and they were in Queensland. I didn't see Ben for those 4 months either as well, when I got locked out of Queensland with the borders. So I hadn't seen him. We'd changed the wedding around 3 times, which seems trivial, but is quite stressful. And then she passed. I couldn't be there. My mum really didn't cope for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then the break-in happened. And the reason why the break-in was a shock in itself too is because I wasn't even supposed to be there that night. I was supposed to be with Ben. I was supposed to be in Canberra with Ben to spend Christmas with him after not really seeing him for the last 4 or 5 months. And because of the Sydney situation with the Avoca cluster that was bubbling up and Queensland deciding to shut the borders, and I was supposed to work for 7 from Boxing Day doing all of the games up in Queensland, they had decided that I wasn't going to be allowed in to see Ben for a further 13 days to do my 14 days outside the cluster, and then I was going to get locked out of Queensland. So it was I was isolating in a hotel next to Ben, got whipped away on a plane, waved at him, Merry Christmas, left presents, left his presents on the ground, and had to walk 10 meters away so he could go and grab them. These bicycles, bubbles and nuts. Like, what sportsmen are living in at the moment is quite half. And so whipped up to Brisbane, and then, that sort of happens. And for someone who really prides themselves on being super independent, I still live by myself a lot of the time because Ben's away. We're still based in Brisbane, and I'm in Sydney. All of a sudden, that real sense of security and self, and it was really sort of compromised, and I really started struggling to sleep. I'm not an outwardly anxious person, but it comes to me in my subconscious of a night time, and I was grinding my teeth into oblivion, not sleeping, just obviously really affected by it. So I kind of I thought a physical challenge might actually be good as well, sort of prove to yourself that you're made of stronger stuff than what perhaps you think, and definitely what anyone else would have thought. It's just a shame that my physical limit was indeed 91 kilo Dan Ewing on my back.
We'll do it.
That'll do it. So,
I saw that you slept through the break-in, but it's just so violating to know that people were in your home.
I actually think it was worse in a way. And the reason why that freaks me out even more is because I'm usually a very terrible sleeper, and I wake up at the drop of the hat, but because I was struggling to sleep that night, just sort of getting over losing the family member, being away from everyone, the pandemic, like let's not even that wasn't hard on everyone, the whole year prior. I'd taken a Valium to help me sleep, and it's not something that I ever take, but it actually made me feel more vulnerable in that moment, to think that, what if they come in the bedroom? I was so out of it. Could have been nothing I could have done to protect myself at that moment, even more so. And I put myself in an even more vulnerable situation. So a whole bunch of things. And I think, how often in life do you get presented with an opportunity that 100% is going to change your life in some way?
The show's about to actually air in Australia the next season, and it's copped a little bit of backlash, I guess. Last year the media were reporting that perhaps it was too realistic and too true to what it is like to perhaps be in the army, and especially like I actually found it confronting having them like yelling in the women's faces and things like that. And then some of the cast this year, perhaps people aren't really happy that some of the men that are on the show are on the show. But you posted that you would do this experience again in a heartbeat. What were the positives for you?
I think the positives for me is for me, growth comes at the point of putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation and figuring out what to do. And it's my personality type to always kind of want to improve and push more. And okay, I didn't do so well that time, but rather than it defeating me, what can I do to come back and do things better? It's just, I've always been that person. Like, I'm incredibly motivated and driven by my own shortcomings to do better the next time. So putting myself in a situation where I knew very obviously I wasn't going to be the strongest or the best at something, not even close. Even though I only had 8 weeks to train, what I got out of my body was more than I ever thought possible. And it's something that I've continued to take parts of that training with me post the show. Not everything. I'm not interested in carrying 91 kilo men around on my shoulders or pushing things or, killing my grip and all those things. But there's learnings and there's things that I've taken from that, which I absolutely have taken into my life post the show. And I think that's all I ever wanted from it, was an experience to grow from. And I've now jumped out of helicopters and been tear gassed and balanced 30 meters above a coal mine. Like, for me, that's freaking awesome. And
not many people can say they've done that.
And my family served, so my uncle is still in the Navy reserves. My grandfather was Vietnam War. My grandfather was World War II. My dad is quite obsessed with that sort of part of history and part of our own history. And I think for me, the appreciation for having the smallest little slither of an insight into what actually happens and how these people live their lives and the incredible things they do, like, I thought was just really humbling and important to educate myself on that. And, to sort of look back on, think about my own family members who serve, but also everyone else's who are overseas, even right now, living these lives. I think it's really important. Knowledge is is important. And I think it's very easy living in this wonderful country that we do have. Like it's easy to not even realize that this sort of stuff happens. And listening to all of the stories from, you know, the 4DS we had in front of us as well was just absolutely remarkable. So yeah, so I think I say I'd do it again tomorrow, because again, that's that innate sense of competitiveness coming out of me of going, well, round one didn't go too well, but if you give me a moment, I will be better. And that's just what I'm like. Like genuinely, like, you know, SAS, unfinished business. I'd be like, sign me up. Give me 6 months notice this time. Like, you know, it's just what I'm like.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I met some incredible people, and you know, being a massive sport fan, you know, I'm rubbing shoulders with the likes of Alicia Molik and Mark
incredible,
and Pete Murray. Pete Murray was my angsty teenage years, and he's there, and now I can text him and talk to him. Like it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong, I was so overwhelmed when, you know, because you genuinely only know who's doing it with you the day before the show. They keep it all separate. You're all brought up there separately. You're kept in separate rooms. And then when you do your promos the day before you go in, that's where the sort of big reveal happens. And some people I knew, like I love Manu, love Jet.
Yeah.
You know, they're great. I've known them from, you know, previous walks of life. And but most people I hadn't met, and, you know, you really do come away with this once in a lifetime lived experience with such a vast array of people. And it was the bloody Olympic Village in there. And I love the Olympics. I love sport. And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, I watched you win a gold medal, Kerry Whitehouse. And I watched you run, Yana Pittman, by the way, is just the most extraordinary human being. And one thing I will say too is it is so much worse than you see on TV. Everything.
Oh my God.
The language they use when they scream at you in the face, like all the challenges that you do, you see like 1/8 of the challenges that you do. Like it's so minimal. Even in the few days that I was there, the amounts of things that we missed out on TV is just, you know, they don't even make a big deal of the lack of food, but there is a severe lack of food. Like Sam Bird lost 8-9 kilos in 13 days. That's how little food there is. So yeah, it's just like nothing you've ever experienced. And for me, I've done a couple of shows now, but this is the least produced experience when you're filming show that I've ever been. You do not, there is no stop, there's no cut. You do not ever fight anybody. It's just your lived experience. And I think that's what makes it so special, and why you get such raw, candid emotion out of everyone, because you just are so oblivious to the fact that you are even there for the purpose of creating a TV show.
So let's talk about you presenting cricket for Channel 7. Where does your love of the game come from?
It's Dad and my brother. So I grew up with them, obviously, who were obsessed with the game. They loved it. We watch a lot of it now. My mum loves it too. Like she'll watch it. She's just been watching all the women's Ashes, and I wake up every day at 4:35 o'clock Australian time, and I've got a running commentary of everything that's happened, she tells me. So it's been a big part of our life for as long as I can remember. And that definitely served me in good stead when I got my first opportunity to work in sports broadcasting completely out of the blue. So at least that knowledge and understanding of the game was there. And I think it helped my relationship with Ben immensely too, because I had some sort of an idea of what the sport was, how it worked, what the pressures were. And I think in many ways, being a performer and the sorts of stresses and pressures that come with having to perform on stage in front of everyone can be quite similar to being an athlete who is just an entertainer in a different way. So even though we have very, very different careers, there's a lot of similarities that have actually helped me really understand him and what he goes through. And then in turn, same for me. And also in turn, just because we have a lovely holiday booked, if you get this opportunity or you get picked in this team, you have to take it. And other relationships I've had previously have not been able to cope with that. So
and have that level of understanding.
Have that level of understanding. If someone's got a 9 to 5 and you're there going, I know we're supposed to do this, but this great opportunity just come through, I have to take it. There isn't any pushback, any anger. There's only understanding. That's been really good for us.
You're obviously incredibly busy. You've got your app, you're a sports presenter, and you've got this like thriving media career. So how do you sort of, I hate this word, but how do you maintain balance and how do you stay sort of healthy when you are traveling so much?
I find balance really hard. And the reason I say that is because I've kind of figured out, for me, there's three important pillars in my life. And there's, your love life, there's your work life, and there's your passion, your hobby, the thing that you enjoy. And I've managed to find a career and make a career lucrative where two of those things are actually one and the same.
Yeah.
So 2/3 versus 1/3, this has always far outweighed my personal life, or this has always been my goal.
Yeah.
And I've got to be careful sometimes that I don't just feed all of my energy into my work and my passion, because they are one and the same, that I don't forget about my relationships. So for me, it's the balance can be hard sometimes, because I do genuinely get so much enjoyment out of what I do. It's not until you sort of haven't come up for air for the last few months and you go, oh God, like I really need to check in and spend some time. And thank God Ben is so incredibly understanding, and he has to do the same thing to me, obviously, because of cricket in many ways. But I know there's going to come a point very soon, just because of my age as well, where when do you have a family? When is the right time? Am I even able to have a family? Like all of those things that, as women we have to deal with and we have to consider, which doesn't really ever really occur to them, because we're the ones that have to take the time and step
we have
away.
the clock.
And it terrifies me, because I've always felt like I'm not ready, because there's just so much I have to do in this part of my life. It's a real stress. So balance for me is hard, because I love my job so much. I'm so happy to work myself into the ground. And as I sort of alluded to earlier, I always worry that it could all end tomorrow, unless I'm always working towards the next thing and striving for the next gig, because, we don't get blessed with a lot of long-term contracts in this job. We, every job is case by case basis. So I'm really lucky to work at Channel 7. I've had many opportunities from Channel 7, but even in my role there, again, it's case by case basis. It's not a network contract. So that's what I'm really working towards, to have some stability, and hopefully that'll make me feel like I will feel like I can actually take a step back and know that there's employment waiting for me at the end of that time off. It's a really hard one, and it's one that I really stress and struggle about, because I don't know what the right time is, and you feel like, gosh, by the time you get back, there'll be many other people waiting behind me to take my spot, and then where do I fit after that? So it's a real struggle and a real stress for me. And I guess for balance, I've learnt, obviously through COVID as well, that my physical well-being is so intrinsically linked with my mental, and if I'm not feeling great and my body's not keeping up with my lifestyle, then everything else will fall over. So eating as well as I can while I'm overseas and don't have access to the sorts of things that I love. And it's hard, because obviously I'm overseas at the moment, but when it comes to the health and nutrition side of things too, because I live alone, it's really hard to cook for one. And I always struggled to, when you have a massive day and you come home, I don't really want to spend the hour off that I had before bed cooking. Like I'd rather just sitting down and trying to mentally and physically unwind. So I've found that there's a company called Macros that do these amazing ready to go meals, and literally arrive fresh on your doorstep, which is awesome. You can choose all the ones that you want, and they're curated by a nutritionist, so you know that the carbs, the fats, the protein, everything is all balanced and done as it should by the professionals. And all I have to do is literally take it out of the fridge and it's good to go. Pop it in the microwave if it's something that needs to be hot. And the convenience for me has been awesome. And I think when things get tough and things are, when you're time poor, anything you can do in order to alleviate that pressure, do it. Like I put the pressure on myself to cook for one, where it's expensive, it's not easy to do. I often waste so much food because I'm never in one place in one go. But having macros in the fridge when I can just get home is just such an easy, convenient way. And my resolution this year was to pay more attention to what I'm fueling my body with, because when you're live on air, when you need to be sharp, when you when you're doing what I'm lucky enough to do, it's, you know, if your body's not feeling great, it does come back to bite you with your performance. So yeah, they're great. And I think they're an awesome size too. So even if I am with Ben, sometimes I'll find that that's just what we're having for dinner because they taste so great. And he comes in and he goes, I'll just have a couple. I'm like, no, that's mine. You can't have that one. So yeah, I think they're super delicious. And because they're made of whole foods, you know, you're getting the good stuff. And I look at it and go, mate, I'm so grateful for you, because if I tried to make that, I'd still be here an hour later. And so the convenience is awesome for me. And I'm living at the moment, which is hit the deck running since COVID and traveling all over the place. Having that convenience is awesome. I just get the text going, yeah, macros is on the way. I'm like, yes, perfect. Yeah, I think it's just about trying to make the right choices, make good choices wherever I can, and accepting on the days that I can't, that it's fine. And it doesn't matter. I'm not to beat myself up about it. Whereas old Erin would have been like, oh, you didn't go to the gym for 3 days in a row. Oh my God, like the world will end. No, the world will not end. You'll be fine. Your body will be fine. Yes, you ate crap yesterday. Just eat well today. Or not. Whatever, you know. Like it's and as I've sort of tried to fix my mindset and have a better relationship with myself, the better that gets and the easier that gets. And if you can stress yourself sick, you can absolutely stress yourself any which way. So I think that's really important. So I need to balance more, definitely.
Yeah, kind of leads into my last question. So we're all about keeping life simpler and better for women and not overcomplicating it. Obviously, apart from having macros, how do you do that for yourself?
Oh, I think every time I get really stressed out or just sort of overwhelmed by life, it's getting back to the basics of things that make me happy. And other than work, which does make me very happy, it's having time with friends and family and loved ones. And I moved out of home when I was 17, and I've kind of always done it on my own. So just, you know, allowing myself to lean on others and spending time with the people that you love, that's very much how I fill my cup. And everyone, you know, if I always talk about my hobbies, it's always like it's seeing friends and family, it's going to the beach, it's having downtime, it's traveling and getting to, you know, to see the world with these people. That's what I do for fun. So yeah, I think it's all about balance. And the older I get, I realize how much that truly is true. And yeah, for me, it's always a danger of overloading myself or taking on too much and overworking myself and forgetting to relax and sort of, you know, enjoy the other side of life as well. It's very, very important. So I think quality time is really important.
Yeah. Erin, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. I've loved chatting with you, and I hope you get a good night's sleep tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of It's All Her. If you have loved this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen, and I'll be back in your ears next week.